Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this discussion today on cultivating an everyday investing habit. That's what we're going to talk about. My name is Timothy. I'm from Dollars and Cents, and we aim to help people make better financial decisions. Today, I have three insightful, relatable voices in the finance space. I think most of you, if you are following finance content, you would recognize them. First, on my extreme left, we will have Aaron and Sara Wee, a sibling duo who run a very popular TikTok channel called the Weeblings. And they have an incredible way of breaking down financial concepts, which they will do so later on, into fun, bite-sized videos that connects with audience of all ages. And also with us is Thomas Chua, the man and the mind behind Steady Compounding. We'll talk a lot about compounding later on, which is an investment website that helps people understand the art and science of investing. Thomas offers deep insight on value investing and long-term wealth building, and he emphasizes the importance of patience and consistency in financial growth. And our topic today will be how to make investing a daily habit. Let me just start by getting my panelists to introduce themselves. Since our theme today is about the everyday investor, also feel free as you introduce yourself to actually share something down to earth that you think the rest of us can relate to. So we'll start with Sara first, because I want to start with you. So you have to introduce yourself and you have to share something down to earth that all of us can relate to. So not like, you travel the world, that kind of things. All right?
Okay, my name is Sara. So I'm half of the Weeblings. We are siblings on a journey to $1 million, and we're sharing our journey online. So that's what our channel is about. One down-to-earth thing, I guess, is I love Taylor Swift.
All right, yeah. Yeah, so you're like all of us, right? I guess.
Yes.
Anything else down to earth? Okay, let's go to Aaron first. Okay, Aaron, introduce yourself. It doesn't have to be yourself. We want to know you, not just the Weebling side of you.
Yeah, so I'm Aaron. I'm the other half of the Weeblings. So I'm unfortunately her brother. I've been trying to get rid of her, but too bad I can't. So something that down to earth that is relatable. I'm a homebody, an introvert. I love to stay at home, which is why we also like to create videos, right? Or at least for me, because I talk to a camera, not someone else. Very good for an introvert.
All right, thanks. And Thomas, something down to earth about yourself. So, your $1 million portfolio, all those things doesn't count.
Yeah, so my name is Thomas. I write at steadycompounding.com, and that's where I break down a lot of my investing philosophy, which is really about owning businesses for the long run and letting these businesses compound my wealth for the long term. So I think after investing for about 14 years, I left my job entirely in 2021, and I'm just investing full-time at the moment. Yeah, so something down to earth. I'm not sure whether this is down to earth, but I play basketball a lot. I walk a lot. I just walk and play basketball a lot.
I actually just want to go on to our discussion and to kick things off, we have this book. I actually read this book this year, Atomic Habits, and I found out that most of them actually read this book. It's a very popular book written by this author called James Clear. And I read it this year, and in the book, one of the things he always says, how you should make small and consistent changes to build lasting habits. And one of the quotes I extract is this: you do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your system. So what this means, and I paraphrase it for myself, it's going to the gym, right? So I always tell people, if you go to the gym and you say that, hey, my goal is to get fit, it's nothing special, right? Because everybody who goes to the gym wants to get fit, right? It's just like, I say I want to invest because I want to be rich, right? There's nothing special, right? Just having a goal doesn't make you rich. But actually what will get you there is actually the systems you have in place, right? So if you have a habit of waking up every day and going for a run, going to the gym, that's what will get you there, right? Not saying that you have a goal to get fit. So one of the things to note is that this means that if we want to invest, and if we want investing to become a daily habit, it's not waiting for the best time to invest so that we can make high returns, but rather about setting up simple automatic actions like the regular deposits into an investment account or investing regularly, because that's a habit, right? And the idea is to create systems rather than to just set goals, right? So you want to create systems rather than to set goals. And with this in mind, Thomas, the first question I want to ask is, your website, Steady Compounding, is exactly what we're talking about, right? Steady Compounding. I think you talk a lot about retail investors, different age, different investment knowledge, right? So my question to you is, how do you think, explain this concept of steady compounding to people And, I will even ask, how do you make it a habit to invest?
I think that Atomic Habits, it is a great book because it talks a lot about people having misaligned expectations when they think they want to achieve something huge. So let's say if you are planning to save up for retirement, or if you are trying to just build immense wealth, right? A lot of people think we need something fancy, we need a fancy strategy. But when it comes to building wealth, especially in the stock market, right? I remember one story, Howard Marks, he's a phenomenal investor. He once shared this. Some of the top investors over a very long period, right? In every single year, they are usually the 27th percentile to the 47th percentile, right? In every single particular year, they look like very average, like they perform just slightly better than average. But here's the thing, when we look at their results across a decade or 14, 15 years, these investors who are consistently within the 27 to 47 percentile, they eventually become the top 4 percentile. Which means when it comes to investing and when it comes to building habits or any other things in life, a lot of times it is not about doing a lot within a particular day, a particular week, or even a particular year, right? What is important is consistent effort and consistent results done over a very long time. And the whole philosophy behind steady compounding is about sustainability of wealth, right? In terms of effort and in terms of the returns. What we want to do is we want to do better than the market in good times, but we don't want to do, badly or even worse during bad times. So that is what it takes to build a resilient portfolio or build resilient wealth, and that is at the heart of steady compounding. Not a lot of stuff, not complicated strategies, but what you want to do is you want to find something simple and doable across a very long period.
So basically develop a good habit that you can easily execute for a long period of time, right?
Oftentimes it's not complicated, it's not fancy, but what is sustainable and what can be developed into a habit.
Right, thanks. And I'm going to throw the next question to Aaron. Aaron, I know you make gains in life, not just in the financial market, but also in a weight room. So I want to marry both the concept of fitness and finance. And I just want to ask you, why is it important in your opinion or from your experience to develop good daily habits that we can practice if we want to be successful both in the financial markets and also in the gym?
I mean, you can definitely see the parallel between like someone going to the gym and someone investing. I mean, both requires that level of consistency as well. And like consistency is key, not necessarily like doing all your gym just for one day in 1 week and then you don't do it anymore. Similarly, if you are investing just once a year, just one day in a year or this 1 week in a year, then it makes it a little bit more difficult as well. So a way that has helped me is to set certain parameters. So it's a little bit more of just a personal thing that we do. So we write out some alerts and code some stuff just to help us send alerts whenever price hits a certain level or when certain indicators get hit. And only when that happens, then we really like turn on our brain. And for the next few days, we really look into the markets. That happens maybe once a month, sometimes once every 2 months. And so that's how we keep it sustainable as well. Because that way, we don't have to worry about spending every single day. What if I miss this? What if I miss that? Again, sustainability helps you with consistency.
I guess it's to take like willpower and discipline out of the equation as well, which I guess is what he talked about in the book as well, right? So that's why systems.
Yeah, correct. I mean, there's this thing in the book called habit stacking. So basically when it comes to habit, just think of it as routine. And in the book, what it does is that, the concept is that if you want to develop a new habit, you pin the new habit you want to have onto an existing habit you have. So for example, this is just my example. I always check that the door is locked at home before I go and sleep. Because that's a habit I have, I told myself recently that before I check that the door is locked, I will go and clear the rubbish first, right? So there's this concept called habit stacking. And Sarah, I just want to ask you, what are some habit stacking strategies that you think, yourself or you think people can actually apply to their life to make investing more of a daily habit?
I think this is a really good question. I love habit stacking. After reading Atomic Habits, I also applied it into my life personally, like you. But when it comes to finance or financial habits, I think one example for me would be finding time to educate myself. So every day as a girl, when I'm getting ready, it takes anywhere from like half an hour to 1.5 hours, depending on like if I have to wash my hair, comb my hair. So whenever I'm doing like getting ready, right, putting on my cream and doing my hair, doing my makeup, I always watch YouTube videos. So to stay on top of the market insights, so if I'm getting ready for 1.5 hours, I'm not wasting that time. I'm using that to educate myself more. To the point where Aaron and I even have like a suction thing for us to put our phone in the shower so that we don't waste our shower time as well. Well, we're like quite big productivity nerds. So like every single time I'm putting on my makeup or I'm in the toilet, I have to be educating myself. Yeah, so that's one form of habit stacking. Another one would be every week on a Sunday, I already have this habit of doing like a weekly review where I would plan for the week ahead and also review my previous week. That's like a productivity hack. And I also add on like a financial review on top of that. So I make sure to track all my expenses, check all my credit card stuff, make sure all my credit cards are paid. On certain weeks, also track my investments to make sure that everything has been automated. And yeah, so that's another thing that I stack on top of it.
I didn't expect that 1 hour in the hours. You can listen to the Dollars and Sense podcast, pretty long, 30 minutes.
Yes, next time I will stream your podcast.
Okay. Thomas, do you have any tips, habit stacking?
Yeah, so I think one interesting thing about investing for a lot of investors, especially if you are new to the market, because when I tell for example, I have a trainer, so when I tell my trainer who is totally oblivious about investing related stuff, so the knowledge is zero, and the good thing about him is that he's very honest, like, I got no interest to read all this, so what should I do? What I usually recommend for most people is rather than you go and fight the willpower and try and break the inertia and all that, just set up an automated function whereby every month your salary comes in, it goes straight to your brokerage, and then your brokerage automatically just do indexing for you, right? Indexing basically, it buys into a basket of very diversified securities. And I think for most people, if you have zero interest in starting business or anything like that, then this is probably one of the best ways to overcome this inertia.
That's a good habit stacking. Aaron, I just want to ask you, right? You know, like going to the gym can be very intimidating for other people, right? And I'd like to say that investing is the same logic, right? Because whenever I talk to some investors outside, it's like asking them to go to the gym for the first time. They just feel like they don't belong there. They feel a bit intimidated because, you know, there's all these strong people in the gym and they don't feel that so strong. And in the same way, the financial markets, there is some parallel there, right? You go to the financial markets, you see people like, you know, Dinesh, you know, talking about all those charts, Thomas and his blog, you know, and you get worried, you know, I'm not going to beat that kind of returns. How do you think a person who is new to investing, who wants to be the everyday investor but has not invested before, can get started in terms of at least overcoming some of these concerns?
You know, when we first start gymming, it's always light. We start off light. But sometimes it's also good to have someone there with you. The first time I started to gym in secondary school, was quite scared because I'm like this small, skinny guy going there. So it felt nice to have someone who brings me along and then shows me the ropes as well, which is why, you know, reading and learning more about finance is always good. Like if you're very afraid of investing, it's always best to think about what's the worst case scenario. And the best way to start that is thinking about your time horizon, or how long can you hold the investment for. When you answer that question, it usually gives you a certain sense of security. Nobody has ever lost money if they held it for more than 20 years. In the span of 20 years, again, worst case scenario, you take all the money that you have, you buy right at the top. If you have a 20-year horizon, you would make back the money in the entire history. And that's like the most extreme case.
Sarah, I just want to ask you a question. The same question actually, which is like, because I mean, I know both of you and I know Aaron is like the very technical, geeky guy, and you are the one who is a lot more normal in terms of the financial market. Because the first time I talked to Aaron, I'm like, oh my gosh, where did this guy, what did he learn in school? You know? But Sarah, I just want to come to you. Like, you know, as someone who may not be as geeky in terms of, you know, always looking at the markets and all the technical analyses and the charts. How do you feel about all these acronyms, all these charts you see? Does it intimidate you? And, you know, for the everyday investor who is trying to invest, do they need to care about these things? Because sometimes I feel like in the financial media space that we're in, you know, too many charts, it just confuses the people.
Yeah, so I think there are different levels of knowledge, and when I first got started, I had nothing, zero. And so the way I made it easier for myself was, okay, firstly, I read a book. So information is important, I read a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. And that book actually broke down step by step what I need to do to get my finances in check. And one of them was setting up automated investing. So that is, I think, what Thomas talked about, and even what Tim mentioned earlier. That was what actually got me started with investing. And one other thing that helped me also was having my brother. So I wouldn't have started without having a friend or a buddy to help me with it. So we basically, what I did was I gyro money every single month till today into a broker, and then I set up like an automated investing or RSP and bought into ETFs. So for someone who, and I didn't need to know anything else aside from that I wanted to buy into a basket of stocks, ones that mirror different markets that I believe will grow in the foreseeable future. And I also made sure, like Aaron talked about time horizon, to only gyro the amount of money that is extremely sustainable for the rest of my life. So I increased that every year, but at that point in time, what you guys, I think, could do now is to think about time horizon. So what can you hold for the next 30, 40, 50 years, the amount of money right now, and start gyroing it. Because I think the most important thing for me was to get started, to get my foot in the door. So instead of having to learn everything and understand, like Tim said, all the acronyms, understand fundamental analysis, technical analysis, what I wanted to do just to get started. And I think that's the most important. And the best thing about automating your investments is also you take yourself out of the picture. So you don't rely on your self-discipline, like, oh, this month I spent too much money, sorry, no money to invest. You make sure that you can't stop. Or you set a lot of boundaries so that you can't take the money out, right? You have to stop the gyro and everything's an extra step. So I think that's how I made it easier for myself.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about improvements and how we can improve on a day-by-day basis. I think in the Atomic Habit book, there's this thing called the 1% rule. And the logic of it is that, you want to earn small, consistent improvements over time rather than, have a large improvement in a short period of time. So if you just improve 1% each day, you'll be a different person by next year, right? So that's the whole idea about it. Thomas, just want to ask you, how does this concept apply to investing? How can, let's say we are a novice investor, we don't know anything, how can we slowly learn and also slowly start investing with confidence, maybe over the next 1 year?
Yeah, so the goal to improve 1% every day is a very powerful one because when it comes to human, we always crave homeostasis, meaning we absolutely hate change. If you don't believe it, you go back, you ask your partner or you ask your parents, they need to change a certain behavior. I guarantee you people will start to fight, right? You will hear no end of it. And this is the truth because whenever we humans, we are confronted with change, especially when we are thinking about big changes, right? It scares us. And it's also one of the core reasons why a lot of New Year resolutions, right? We think back to January 1st, where we start setting how many of us actually completed it, right? Maybe not many, because it seems very scary. But when we are thinking about breaking our goals into these very, very tiny incremental steps, it becomes a lot easier for us to do it in a very sustainable way. And when we are talking about the compounding relationship, right? Some interesting facts is when we look at Warren Buffett, his wealth today, it is about $138 billion, right? But the truth is 99% of his wealth actually comes after 50 years old, right? So it's not that he get paid more or anything like that. In fact, he hasn't been drawing salary for many, many decades. But it just comes from the fact that when a thing compounds, especially when it comes to capital or when it comes to habit, you are not going to see changes on a day-to-day effect. And I think that's what throws a lot of people off. But you always got to remember that you got to stick to this very tiny incremental improvement on a daily basis, and over the long run, you will start to see results. And when it comes to investing, always take care of the downside, and the upside will usually take care of itself.
All right. I heard just when you were saying about spend 30 minutes a day reading annual reports, and I was thinking,
that's
Aaron,
very down to earth.
is there a easier non-annual report way of learning more about the financial markets that any Sara,
Oh, is it? You want me to say watch the dollars?
No.
Just kidding.
I mean, no, I'm just thinking what some ways. I mean, for me personally, I just share, I believe in systems, right? So I don't like to open my my Tiger Broker app every day and check the stock market because I don't have time for it. And I know the more I check, the higher the chance I'll make a mistake, right? So for me, it's once a month, but I make it as a very religious thing. So every once in a month, I stack it actually with my bills because you have to pay your credit card bills, your utility bills every month. So when I put my utility bills, I pay my utility bills, my credit card bills, then I look at my investment portfolio. I see all my different platforms. I see which one has not enough money to do the monthly DCA, and then I will then top up a little bit. But, is there any other ways you think?
People always like to ask, what's going to happen to NVIDIA, what's going to happen to TSMC. But the truth is, when you want to invest and you are new investors, the best place to start is to start looking at the products you are using, right? It could be Lululemon, or it could be something that you like, something that's understandable, and something that most importantly is interesting to you. Because if I were to ask you to go and study, what goes in the process of making a chip, why is TSMC the only one who can, have this capability so far, or why ASML is the only one who can come up with the technology that supply all this machine to TSMC, most people will just fall asleep, right? And it's very complicated for most people. But there are a lot of very, very high quality companies out there. Like when you look at Domino's Pizza, for example, a lot of people like tech companies. But if you look at Domino's Pizza over the past decade, they beat every single one of the big tech companies out there, right? If you just look at share price performance. So when it comes to investing, we are not compensated for style points, right? We are not compensated for tackling very difficult problems. Sometimes the best performers, or sometimes even Lululemon, it was delivering I think over 20% annualized for the past decade, right? And sometimes a lot of these companies are just right below your nose, right? We don't have to look for very difficult problems to solve.
Right, so just looking at the companies and the products around us there, and then asking ourselves whether, hey, that's a good place to start, do a bit of research from there. Right. Thomas, I just want to ask, you went on a run just now talking about, compounding interest, and it was a very, very long answer you gave. So I just want to ask you, because today, just as I was coming, I actually watched a IG stories. I don't know why it fit to me. I think it thought that I was coming here, so he wanted to tell me something. So the TikTok story was actually about buying bubble tea. So that lady was saying if every day you buy bubble tea, or you don't buy bubble tea, you can save $6. 1 year, you'll save $1,000. 5 years, you'll save $5,000. And that's not enough to buy a house. So, you went through all this misery for no reason. So you may as well buy bubble tea now, right? So my whole point is that 40 years, 50 years just feels like a ridiculously long time. Can we enjoy a little bit in between, or cannot, must keep it rolling all the way until we are 65?
Yeah, I think most of the suffering comes when people want to do early FIRE, right? You want to financial independence, retire early. But for most people, I think the goal is not to retire early and don't do anything in life, because our lifespan is going to increase to 100 in just a few more decades. And I think doing nothing at a very early age and not earning any sort of income is going to be very miserable. And if you're thinking about a sustainable way, right, there's another book called Die with Zero, meaning you don't just leave your wealth all the way until the end and you try and pass it to your descendants, because rather than just collecting money dividends, you want to collect memory dividends as well. And so whenever we think about financial planning or investing, it must always be a balanced approach. While we think about the long run, but the long run is a series of short run, and you must make sure that all these short run needs are taken care of as well. And I read the book by Safety Ramit also, which is a fantastic book, and I think most people should go and read it. The name is
I Will Teach You to Be Rich.
Yes,
it sounds like a scam, but it's not.
It has a very clickbaity name, but it has a system that I think most people can use, because I think most books talk about cutting back on bubble tea or lattes and all that whatnot. But the truth is, cutting back on your Starbucks, all this is not going to get you very far. But what matters is that you want to cut back where it matters. So for example, if there are certain things whereby you're spending a lot of money on maybe going to the bar or drinking alcohol with your friends, but you never like it in the first place, then make a conscious effort to cut that out and distribute the budget to something else. So you always must be very aware of what we are spending on. Things that don't spark joy for you, right? You cut back, but things that actually brings you joy, you can actually get to spend it. And I think for most people, especially if you have a very long runway, it doesn't take a lot for you to actually reach financial independence in 20 to 30 years.
Right. Thank you so much, Thomas, Sarah, Aaron, for being part of this panel. And for those of you who are watching this online, also, we hope this session has been useful and that you also can take your step towards making investing a daily habit. Thank you.